All right, this next problem is called reading books. So what's going on here? We have n books, and Cotivalo and Justina are going to read them all. And each book has a certain time that it takes to read them. I guess the same for both people. So they're both going to read every book, and they can't read the same book at the same time. What is the minimum total time required? So, for example, let's say there's 3 books, taking 2, 8, and 3 time to read. That actually takes 16 time to read total, even though it would only take 13 if there was only one person. And they're sort of limited by the 8 book, right? If K reads the 8 book first, J can read the other 2 books, but then he has to wait for K to be done with the 8 book, and then J can read the 8 book. And while J is reading the 8 book, K can read the other 2 books. So it's sort of dominated by the time that they both have to take to read the 8 book. So this already gives us one part of the solution, actually, which is that it takes at least twice the length of the longest book. And it turns out that the answer is actually the max of that constraint and how long it would take one person to read all the books. So it's the max of twice the largest value, and just the sum of all the values. So why is that? So here's a strategy you can use. Books. Right, so we have our books, A, B, C, D, E, F, and let's say we have arranged them in order. Let's say we want to times. So a strategy we could follow. A reads A, J reads B, and just go through this. After you're done with okay. So J is going to read B, C, D, E, F, A, and A is going to read A, B, C, D, E, F. And so the advantage of doing them in this sorted order is that K will never get stuck. So K is always, right, you only get stuck if you're both trying to read the same book at the same time. But K has already read book A, which is the longest book. And so K is never going to catch up with J. Right? The only way that K could catch up with J, that is, but try to read the same book at the same time, because K is like the length of A behind. And like they would only get stuck if one of these books was bigger than A. Because then like K would try to enter that book before J was done with it. But A is the biggest book, right? That's how we picked it, so that can't happen. Right, in the case where like all the books are the same length, like K starts each book just as J finishes it, and there's no conflict. So the only other issue is that J might get stuck behind K. If A is very long. This gives us the right. So if J gets done with all of these other books and K is still not done with A, then J might have to wait. So how long would J have to wait? Well, J has to wait A time for K to read it, and then J has to read it himself, so that's 2A time. And in the meantime, K can read all these other books while J is reading it. So either there's 2 cases. Either no one gets stuck, in which case they both just read all the books without stopping. That's just the time it takes them is just the sum of all the values, right? That's how long it would take them if there was no conflict. And the other case is that J gets stuck, right? He reads through B, C, D, E, and F, and all the way around to A, and then has to wait for K to read A. And in that case, the total time is 2 times A, because J has to wait for K to finish A, and then J has to read A himself. And K will finish reading everything in just the sum of the values, which is less in this case. Right? That's the whole idea was that the sum of everything else was less, so that J got stuck. So yeah, that's it actually. So now we can put it up. We just need to read the N and then the lengths. And the lengths are all positive. That makes sense for books. And we said that the answer is just larger of twice the max and the sum, so we'll just track the max and the sum. And that's it, actually. So quite simple implementation. You don't even need vector. You do technically need algorithm for max. It's kind of funny. Max is a pretty simple algorithm, but that's what it is. Two, 16. Cool. So let's give it a try. Okay, so that worked. And so this is the solution again. Right, there's only, we sort of read them following the strategy. We know that K can't get stuck. K will always finish everything in just the sum of the values time. And the reason is that by the time K is finished his book, J will be already on to the next book at least, because A is bigger. And then the same logic applies, right? B is bigger than C, so by the time J is done with C, by the time K is done with B, J must be at least done with C. So there'll never be a problem there. But there could be a problem the other way, is that J reads everything else and then gets stuck at A, in which case it takes a total of 2 times A time. So that's the case where J gets stuck, and then in the case where no one gets stuck, it just takes the sum of all of the values. And so we just take sort of the worst case, whichever one of those is worse happens. So we just keep track of the sum of the max and compute the answer. That's just either twice the max or the sum.